Welcome to Dating DejaVIEW, the podcast where we explore your patterns, your pitfalls, and your personal growth in modern dating. I'm your host, Christina Hathaway, marriage and family therapist and dating and relationship expert. In today's episode, we're going to do our very first Dating DejaVIEW, which is where I discuss different couples, relationship styles on reality TV. Now, again, this is just my perception as I do not know these individuals. I'm just going to have a little fun with what I know as a therapist. So if you're looking at your relationship patterns and thinking I have a lot of the same, it might be deja vu, but it also might be you. So let's figure it out together. What's up, Deja crew? Welcome back to another episode, our very first Deja View, which is where I talk about reality TV and all of the things going on in the hemisphere. Now, I'm a Bravo girly, but I'm also going to touch on Love is Blind. I did watch the first 5 or 6 episodes. It's kind of boring, but we'll discuss it. But this is an opportunity just to have a little fun. Now, just so you know, I don't know these people. There's so many variables when it comes to people's attachment styles, how they were raised, how that ends up affecting their relationship. So we're just having a little fun and hopefully we don't offend too many people here. So the first one I want to talk about is recently, if you haven't been paying attention, Mauricio and Kyle obviously are going through a separation. Mauricio recently injured himself pretty badly, breaking his clavicle in, I believe, Aspen. But Kyle has come out and said that basically their split was due to financial issues. Now, the thing about Kyle Richards and Mauricio is that obviously there's a lot of money going on between them. She's obviously very, very successful in her housewife, plus her own businesses, as well as his real estate business. And she does touch on that where she says, you know, they kind of brush things under the rug and just poured all their attention into their daughters. And now that I believe Portia just turned 16, they bought her a Porsche when she turned 16, which good for her. And it gets to that point where it's like, do we even like each other? Right? I see this so much in relationships. And I'm going to teach you guys something today about this. Whether you have kids or not, my husband and I do not have kids, nor can we have children. People ask all the time, when are you going to have kids? Thank you for asking, but that ship has sailed and, you know, the cook is out of the kitchen. So stop fucking asking that question too. But what we see is that, you know, people get into relationships because of their own insecurities and they try to feel each other's insecurities through love. And then oftentimes that then bleeds into the relationship they have with their children. And the hierarchy of the family becomes very skewed, where the hierarchy of love and self and connection is self. Well, God, if you're spiritual, God, self, you and your partner as parents, then your children. But we see it all the time where it gets flipped, right? Or I'm not working on maybe I'm working on myself, but I'm not vulnerable with my partner. We're not having those hard conversations, kind of like those green flags we talked about in last episode. Those do not exist. So then because I'm not getting that emotional need filled, maybe I'm pouring that into my children and trying to get my children to fill that need or doing it in some sort of controlling way. And then kids get old, they start not needing you as much. I mean, 16, I could have lived on my own at that point. I had a not full-time job. I had a job, I had a car, like I was paying bills. And so you have to kind of look at each other and say, whoa, who is this person? Around the same time, Mauricio started the show Buying Beverly Hills. So there was 2 seasons and it started around 2022. So what does that make their daughter, like 12 or so, 13, 14? And so now he's getting a lot of attention. Now they're both very attractive people. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but I'm just going to go off of what's very normal in relationships, not even just relationships in reality TV, but the concept of like, we never invested in the relationship for the 16 plus years that we've had children, because I know they have grown children. We did not invest in ourselves. We did not make ourselves a priority. And again, that's where that kind of empty nester syndrome happens, where we see individuals split up after their kids leave. And oftentimes, if there is turmoil, we're not able to emotionally express ourselves in a safe way, or we brush things under the rug, then you almost even know before the kids are gone that we're just staying together for the children, which is the worst thing you can do. the worst thing you can do. Now, when I watch them on reality TV, they actually look very loving, and you could tell that they're good parents, right? We obviously don't know what happens behind closed doors, but what I really think has gone on is a multitude of things. He got a lot of attention, right, from the show. I'm sure his DMs were full of ladies. They did not pour into their relationship in the way that they should have, or they did it in like exactly the opposite of what they should have. Oftentimes it can be very fake and phony. We can be people pleasing, pretending like everything is okay when it's not. And on the outside, that looks normal. You might even had parents like this that, again, they were great parents. I mean, obviously when they told their daughters that they were divorcing, it was terrible. I don't know, I would did that on national television, but okay. And then, he's getting some, maybe money's going places it shouldn't be going because now he has a little bit of fame and freedom, and boom, here we are. Now, however, she still hasn't, from what I recall, filed for divorce. Now that was in December 2024, excuse me. But they doesn't sound like they've filed for divorce. She does say she is living her best life, which we love for her. There was some speculation that she was dating a woman, which is not abnormal. You see people who've lived kind of on the DL, they thought they had to live this like normal, heterosexual life, and that's not the reality. So, not saying that she is a lesbian, because she's definitely said that she is not, but that's the update on that. So yeah, we'll see what happens with them. Okay, next one, and I'm going to get this wrong, but bear with me. So this season of Summer House, we have Lindsay Hubbard coming in pregnant, and her ex, Carl Radke, coming in still healing from their breakup. So for those who do not know this story, Lindsay and Carl were best friends. They've been on the show. I want to say Lindsay was OG and Carl came in the second season, and they've been besties since the show started. Lindsay was in a few relationships between Carl, and Carl basically has dated Lindsay, right? So they had one bout of dating, broke up, and then got back together. Now, I want to talk about Lindsay Hubbard's relationship style and her history. Very toxic, very explosive, very chaotic. Lindsay has shared her story about her mother kind of abandoning her. So she definitely gives me like anxious attachment vibes. And, she will show up and do for a person until the bubble is burst. So the fantasy that she creates about what that relationship is going to look like bursts, and then she does what she calls gets activated and then just demolishes these men, right? So initially kind of in fantasy land until something happens, and that something happens could be really anything. Oftentimes it's just something that is differing from the fantasy that we're creating. I'm going to have a whole episode on this, so don't you worry. And I saw this with her. So she was with Everett, right? And they would get in these explosive arguments, and she would be lovey, 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 and then boom, activated. And this pattern repeated on air in every single relationship. And what was interesting is it seemed to me that she was doing a concept I call monkey branching, where you're basically holding on to the past relationship until you can get to the new guy, right? And she never really had time in between, which tells me a little bit more that she is in that love addict, kind of anxious attachment type of person. And why I think that's true is because for the love addicts or anxious attachment, I like to call it love addict because that's how I have been trained. They believe that they will die if they're not with somebody else. Now, on the outside, she presents very independent, but when it comes to romantic relationships specifically, she tends to monkey branch. At least that was what is shown on air. I think every season, I have to go back and look. Almost every season, she's been in some sort of serious relationship or situationship, right? And I get it. I mean, we all want to be loved, but there was never any healing, right? It was almost as if the compounding factors of the past relationship just came into the new relationship, as we would call baggage. And then the toxicity increased over time. So when she first dated Carl, that's very much what happened. It was almost, it presents as the fantasy is broken when you can't do it her way, right? So she'll be lovey-dovey and do all the things and take care of you until something happens, and then boom, activated, and it's very contemptful. It is a lot of criticism, a lot of contempt, a lot of just putting down character. So again, when we talk about relationships failing and those four horsemen of the apocalypse, we saw that in the history of her relationship. So her and Carl, they broke up the first time. Then she dated another guy, I don't remember his name, but she would kind of, and he was a working dude and worked a lot. So he didn't have the attention on her. Again, if the fantasy is you're going to spend all this time and attention on me. Now, again, he wasn't healthy either, but she yelled at him about making him sandwiches. Anywho, her and Carl get back together, right? And Carl at this point is sober. So Carl was addicted to alcohol, cocaine, and I believe Adderall. And he's going through his own healing process after losing his brother. So they get back together and it looks good. And they went to therapy, which was like, yes, finally. Because I swear to you guys, I wanted to message this girl and be like, let's work on this. I can see exactly the pattern of what's happening, especially with the abandonment of your mother and not feeling safe with, getting close, not feeling safe with vulnerability, but also feeling like everyone's going to leave you like her, right? So maybe she's not anxious. Maybe she's more avoidant, or not avoidant, dismissive, which is both anxious and avoidant. We'll talk about that later. Anyway, so they get together and it looks great. It's very, again, fantasy in the beginning, moves pretty quickly, but again, they were friends. So I can understand that. But a lot of like that, knight in shining armor, we're going to live our lives together. I'm going to be pregnant. I think at once she had a line like, uh, engagement, marriage, babies, like, and that was just all she wanted. Engagement, marriage, babies. And it was almost as if she didn't care who was going to give that to her, because if I could have a baby, then there's a thing that's never going to leave me, right? Like her mother abandoned her. However, they get engaged and all is good. And then the next season, all is not good, because he is kind of figuring out his stuff with work and his career. Now, fourth wall, their career is the show, right? But they're talking about it like we're all idiots, like they don't make money off the show. And she's like criticizing him for what he isn't doing, even though he's doing the same job as her. Maybe not as many brand deals, but whatever. And it becomes very critical again. And ultimately, he ends the relationship not in the best way. 3 weeks, I believe it was, before their wedding. Yeah. So he has since said, if I really was, not sure about it, I would have ended it on this date, because that's when our money and our deposits were no longer refundable, so on and so forth. And for me, on his side, because he had become sober. Now, one of the things you guys might not know is when you go into sobriety, one of the things they tell you not to do is get into a serious relationship. They say that even in eating disorder treatment. Do not get into a serious relationship. Why? Because all we're doing is addiction hopping. We're looking for that fix in other means, and relationships can be a very socially acceptable way to get your rocks off, right? Get your dopamine hit. Food can be another one. Gambling's kind of frowned upon. Shopping is another one. Social media, like disconnecting, is another one. So the idea of sobriety is to kind of like clear you from the addictive patterns of having your needs met through these external sources and learning how to meet those needs in yourself, right? Not through anything outside of you. So he, I think, made a big mistake in getting the relationship with her when he actually needed time to heal. So he breaks it off. The timeline is August 2022. He popped the question. August 2023, she had a bridal shower that he did attend. So basically, they broke up around September. Okay. Then she starts dating another guy. I want to say it was a country singer. And then she had mentioned in like December, January, she had reconnected with a guy that she used to date. Turner is his name. And they started dating. And then this episode of Summer House was July 4th. And she's announcing she is, I want to say, 4 months pregnant. So July 4th, do the math, got pregnant pretty quickly. Now, again, I think it was very much a monkey branching type of situation. And she This isn't the first time she's been pregnant. She unfortunately had a miscarriage with another individual who was a situationship on the Winter House series. And it's just a pattern, guys, if you can see it, like monkey branching and then really wanting that fairy tale ending. So doing anything she could to get it. And she got the baby, right? She got the baby. And now her and Turner are kind of figuring out their relationship while trying to co-parent a newborn. But why I brought this up is that in the episode this week, she says, Carl's still scared of me. He's shaking and red. He might have said that, but the gist of it was he's still scared of me. Well, I don't emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally even care he's here. I cannot even think about him. And I said to my husband, I go, well, yeah, because you just took all of the emotion and the grief and everything from him and put it into Turner and then into your daughter. And we've seen you do that over and over again. You've basically, it's not that you're not over him. You just numbed and did what you normally do, which is just find the next person to fill that void in your life. But unfortunately, the more we do that, the more baggage we carry instead of just allowing ourselves. I did this with the breakup I had before Mark of feeling it, going through the feelings. I was single. I was sober. Like I was just trying to feel it so that I would not bring that into my next relationship. And then more importantly, understand my part and why the relationship ended. And so I just felt like that comment gave me the ick. Now, she and he did very well in this episode of being complimentary to each other and just having a nice, like she complimented on the food and for getting bagels. And it was really nice. So that is great. I just hope that she is doing her work on being able to just understand her patterns, right? And not just therapy. I believe she said she was going to therapy when I listened to her on the Bio Files, but not just therapy, not just couples therapy, individual therapy and trauma therapy, so that she doesn't pass on any of these types of relational wounds and trauma bonds that she's had with her own children. So that is my gist on Summer House. Okay, we're gonna do one more. And I want to talk about Paige and Craig. Let's just talk about that. And I'll come back to Love is Blind on our next one because I like these episodes to be short and sweet. So Paige DeSorbo and Craig Conover, they are a couple that have been together for 3 years. Paige is the most fabulous woman in the entire world. I love her so much. And she is also on Summer House with Lindsay Hubbard. And she met Craig Conover through the Bravo Sphere. He is on Southern Charm, which is also a reality TV show, if you did not know that. And they were dating for 3 years. Now, the issue with them, I see this all the time, I've talked about it before, is they lived in different states. Now, they do have the funds and the means to go back and forth because not only are they on reality TV, but they've done very well for themselves in taking their fame and making investments in their future. Paige has a wonderful following on Amazon Lives, as well as many, many brand endorsements. And she has one of the top podcasts, Giggly Squad, which I listen to when my therapist / coaching brain needs to just decompress. So thank you, Paige and Hannah. Craig has created Sewing Down South, which is a awesome home lifestyle line, I guess you would say. So it started with pillows. Now it's going to all home decor, if you will. So anywho, when Paige's story, she was in a relationship when she was younger, and she's shared some of this, so this isn't like groundbreaking, but she was in a relationship when we met her, and it was an older gentleman, I believe. And he almost was trying to make her be something she was not. And she even said, like, when I was 20, in my late 20s, I thought I would get married and have children, right? And something in her, and I felt this in myself, was like, this isn't it. Like, this isn't it for me. And she ended up ending that relationship. And through time, and she dated one of the other castmates, but always kind of had the upper hand, right? She always seemed like she was in control with these other guys. And her and Craig get together, but most of the gentlemen that she dated after, I don't remember the guy's name, so you guys probably screaming it, but you know who I'm talking about when she first came on, were in different places, right? So Andrea, he went from like Italy to New York to LA. And then obviously Craig is in another state altogether. And that in itself for me is always kind of a makes me go, because it gives me the vibes that we want a relationship, but we don't necessarily want that commitment. Because it's easy to have the vulnerability, the emotional support, the camaraderie, the laughs, right? Without having to have the person near you in your personal space, having the schedule, having to show up to places, having to be with their friends. But you get kind of that emotional need met without the physical commitment being met. And then you get to have fun and they come, come to you, you go to them, you have a little bit of sex and everyone's happy. But it definitely gives like commitment issue vibes, right? It's kind of this make believe of, I'm in a relationship. It's a, I would say it's a situationship, but we call each other boyfriend and girlfriend, right? And for them, I think that was one of the big issues that no one's actually touched on, but I'm going to touch on that because he very much wants to be, he's like Lindsay, like he wants marriage, children, the whole thing. And his ex, Naomi, he was not in a good place when they were together. She broke it off with him, dated some other chick, and then he's with Paige, and now he's building his business and his empire. And rather than looking at that as something to be proud of, not be proud of, I'm sure he's proud of himself, but he's just seeing that as more reason why I want to go into this next step of life, which is totally fine. However, it was clear after a year or so that she did not, right? Now, we are not in her private conversations, but she would make kind of flip-floppy comments, right? She would say, I want to be married to you. I want a ring. And then the next time she's like, that scares me, right? And I get that too, is when you're young, because even, late 20s, early 30s is still young, that you may not be sure. Or if you are sure, great, like go for it. As long as you've gone to therapy or listened to this podcast. But when we are flippy floppy, then we have to look at that. Why? Right. So not only am I dating someone who's out of state, but I'm flippy floppy about making this commitment after 1 year, 2 years. Like after 2 years, I was engaged, baby. And now obviously we lived in the same state and at that point lived together. And that is really a red flag. I want y'all to pay attention to that. And not a red flag like she's bad, but a red flag. And do you want a person? Because if you don't want a person, that's fucking okay. Do you, boo? Go out there and do whatever it is you need to do. Or if you just realized, yes, maybe I want a person, but this might not be the person, also fine. But what ended up happening is, I mean, Paige has really come into herself. She's become very, I would say, secure, is what she said. She's very secure. She got this apartment. I loved this episode of Giggly Squad when she was talking about like manifesting this apartment, which she ended up getting. She's really just worked hard for what she's wanted. And maybe that's it, Paige. If you're listening, I hope you are. Maybe it's that you thrive on working hard to get what you want, what is important to you. And I think a lot of the guys in your life have just made it very easy. I actually just talked about this with the client. She goes, I almost question the guys that kind of are the nice guys and just show up for me as if there's something better and like more exciting out there. But then I've been with a guy who was like super dominant and made me work really hard. And I was like at his beck and call. Now, I'm not saying either of those things are healthy, but when we are someone like her who puts her mind to something and works hard and gets it, and that's where she feels secure in herself, maybe these relationships that are just kind of bowing to her are not attractive. So having more of that, I won't say dominant, but maybe a man, sorry, Craig, maybe a man who is very secure in himself, who doesn't need her at all. Kind of like Mark and what I talked about a few episodes ago. He doesn't need me at all. And that is attractive to me. I am not filling any voids in his life. So I would say, my girl Paige, if you're listening, that is the avatar. Now, the rumor is that she is dating he's like a sports agent. D'Amelio's his last name. That's his first name. And that's okay. Everyone's having a shit fit that she's dating. It's like, okay, let's just say something about that. Y'all know, ladies, especially with, Paige kind of has this personal, public persona. She already kind of was flip-flopping back and forth. and we saw her do that. And but then at the end there, like as I'm watching this season of Summer House and Southern Charm, like you start seeing her get a little bit more assertive with what she wants, but he's still in that. But she said this, but she said she wanted a marriage, but she wants me to buy her a ring, but she said she wants our babies, right? If that's her truth and she really did have a hard time asserting herself, she was probably done a year ago. She was just trying to find the best way to do it. Right. And we oftentimes do that, ladies, where we put our wants and needs on the back burner and we try to people please our way through. We try to save and rescue our way through, trying to save that relationship until we are fucking done. And then we're done. Happened to me. I was like literally out and about that same weekend because mentally I was done for probably a year. And I just people pleased and care took my way through trying to save this relationship. So you do you, girl. I fully support you dating others and Craig too. Now he seems to have been the one who was broken up with, which fucking sucks. Right? It sucks when you feel blindsided, but I also would be curious to get him on my coaching call to say, but was it really blindside? What red flags were you not paying attention to? What red flags were you trying to make pink? So that's it. Okay. So that's our first episode of Dating DejaVIEW. If there's any show y'all want me to watch. So I currently watch, I did watch Vanderpump, The Valley, Summer House, Southern Charm, Southern Hospitality. I will review Love is Blind again. I watched it, but like I said, I was kind of bored. So the one peeps, the people I'd want to talk about is, was it Mason, Madison, and the other guy. So we'll get into that next time. I think I need to rewatch it because I was kind of bored. So, when you're bored watching something, you're just like on your phone. But if there's any show you want me to watch, please let me know. If you like this information, give me a follow on Instagram or YouTube at Dating DejaVIEW Podcast. If you like this information and you're feeling helpful, we are a brand new podcast. So if you could share this with others, post it on your social media. We always do reels. That's super easy to do. Or give me a 5-star rating and review. If you haven't already, please also follow us anywhere you listen to your podcast so that you'll be notified when there is a next episode. I post every Tuesday and Friday. So I hope that you found this entertaining and learned a little bit something here. And remember, it might be deja vu, but it also might be you. Goodbye.